Headquarters of Telesa English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South. I'm Emike Omolu. We begin in Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro has asked for those suspected of his assassination attempt to have a public trial. Maduro has also asked the Public Prosecutor's Office and the Supreme Court of Justice to make findings of the investigation public. He added that there had been plans in place for a transitional government to replace officials targeted in the drone attack.
El objetivo de ellos era no solo asesinar a Nicolás Maduro.
The aim was not only to kill Nicolás Maduro, but to eliminate all high officials in the country. In the middle of all this chaos and panic, they plan to create a new government, a transitional government to replace us after a criminal attack. I have concrete information on this. All of this was planned from Colombia. We know people involved in the attack escaped to Peru, Colombia, and the United States. I asked the foreign minister to order their extradition from these countries. They are criminals that plan to attack our republic.
2 high-ranking military officers have been arrested for their involvement in the August 4th attack. That takes the number of people held to 14. Officials say another 20 suspects remain at large. The government says 11 hitmen were involved and that they had been recruited during anti-Maduro demonstrations and trained in neighboring Colombia. Former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is due to register his candidacy in a few hours. Lula is currently leading the polls, but doubts remain as to whether he can run. He is serving a 12-year prison sentence for alleged corruption and money laundering. Supporters say his imprisonment is aimed at stopping him from running from office. The Supreme Electoral Court now has to decide if it will allow him to register as a candidate. Meanwhile, crowds of Brazilians have marched to the capital, Brasilia, to support the former president. Thousands walked across the country for several weeks, including campesinos and other social movements. They have joined forces to support Lula's presidential bid. Colombia is preparing to head to the polls once again on August 26th. This time, people will vote on an anti-corruption referendum that could stiffen penalties. More on that in this report.
Member of the NGO Transparencia for Colombia, Marcela Restrepo, says the anti-corruption referendum to be celebrated in the country is a chance for Congress to change its lack of credibility before all Colombians.
The Congress has joined the fight against corruption, but now it must really show they are committed to a change, once the referendum passes with the 12 million votes we hope to get. After that, congressmen have to design a new regulation for national institutions. We want to see them working for our country, and until now, they seem to be very excited about this.
During the presidential and Congress election campaigns, every party seemed to be in favor of this consultation. But now, the ruling party of President Iván Duque has stepped aside of this project.
We totally understand why the Centro Democrático Party has decided to do this. Several of their members are linked to corruption investigations, and it's clear that they will be affected by the referendum.
During his inauguration speech, Duque said he will not support several projects pushed by Congress despite he endorsed the anti-corruption referendum during his campaign.
No se ha definido el presidente Duque si apoya o no. President Duque doesn't have a clear position in this regard, but he must support the referendum because it's good for the country. This will be good for his government. This will benefit every community because it will bring transparency to our institutions.
A week after President Duque defines which projects will be eliminated, Interior Minister Nancy Patricia Gutiérrez is expected to announce the end of the other projects that could affect the revolutionary alternative forces of the Commons Party or FARC.
This is a dirty strategy because even though it has to do with taxes and asset declarations, these projects could modify the political participation of FARC former combatants. This means that they will be left without at least 30% of the seats in Congress. So we asked the minister to please carefully read the projects she pretends to discard.
Pues ministra, lea antes de erradicar los proyectos.
The referendum promoters have also denounced the smear campaign pushed by the members and supporters of the ruling party, Centro Democrático.
After the sixth round of dialogue with the National Liberation Army, or ELN, social organizations have called on the Colombian President Iván Duque to renew negotiations as soon as possible. The groups want Duque to listen to civil society and insist on a permanent dialogue with the ELN. On Tuesday, the president named Miguel Ceballos Arevalo as a High Commissioner for Peace. It remains to be seen whether Ceballos will take over responsibility for establishing communication with the group.
We're asking this government to listen to civil society. We're asking the president to listen to us, like he listens to the UN and the Catholic Church. He should also listen to us. We have worked hard for peace for many years.
In Argentina, a woman has died after having a backstreet abortion just less than a week after the Senate rejected an abortion bill. Women gathered in the capital, Buenos Aires, to pay tribute to the 24-year-old Liz, a mother of two, who tried to perform an abortion using parsley. Liz died after suffering from septic shock and generalized infection. Activists campaigning for legal, safe and free abortion in the country expressed their regret and insisted that these deaths could be avoided by legalizing abortion. Meanwhile, a group of women dressed as handmaids gathered outside Congress once again to demand reproductive rights. Demonstrators carried signs with the names of the 38 senators who voted against the abortion bill and said every death caused by a clandestine abortion is to be blamed on them. The Senate rejected the abortion bill last week, 38 to 31 votes. A year will have to pass for the bill to be debated again. Still in Argentina, the judiciary has rejected a legal challenge filed by former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner linked to a corruption case. Federal Judge Claudio Bonadio is leading the investigation on a bribery network that allegedly took place during Fernández de Kirchner's term. So far, a dozen officials have been arrested. Some say this is a new case of political persecution against a progressive Latin American leader, as it has been occurring in Brazil and Ecuador with their former presidents. Elected Paraguayan President Mario Abdo Benitez is taking office today in a ceremony in the capital, Asunción. These are live images from the inauguration. President Horacio Cartes prepared for the power handover by taking off his presidential sash and handing over his stave. The new president has announced that he will name his half-brother and former central bank board member, Benigno Lopez, as finance minister.
Distinguidas delegaciones extranjeras, señores miembros.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
We've been deleted from Facebook. Facebook has deleted all of our content. It's not unprecedented. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, we've learned of numerous pages and events taken down. For example, you know that march in Washington, D.C. this past weekend to stop the Nazis? Facebook deleted the event page that was being used to organize a counter-protest to the Nazis. Also taken down VenezuelaAnalysis.com, which provides grassroots analysis of Venezuela and important critiques of U.S. foreign policy towards the country, and crimes of Britain, and Haiti analysis. In their crusade to root out fake news with the help of the U.S. Congress and the Atlantic Council think tank, which, by the way, has Henry Kissinger and former CIA chief Michael Hayden on their board, Facebook is doing a wonderful job at eliminating real news content with an alternative perspective. Sure, it's also taking out the trash. But those of us seeking to report the truth, the voice of the voiceless, Israel's massacres in Palestine, the demonizing of the Venezuelan state, women standing up to sexual violence throughout the global south, the struggles of the indigenous to save their lands, and so on, We already have an uphill battle in the fight for global justice. If you follow our work, if you appreciate it, make some noise, contact Facebook, and let's bring back Telesur English.
Welcome back. For the second time this year, Facebook has blocked access to our Telesur English page. The first time was in January, and despite being asked information as to how the page violated Facebook's community rules, no explanation has been forthcoming. The official notice from the social media site begins with the sentence, "Your page, Telesur English, has been removed for violating our terms of use." The statement lacks the necessary detail required to guide Telesur in the resolution of this problem with Facebook. So we talked to our director, Tatiana Rojas, who explained more about the situation.
All they said is we are supposedly violating their terms of use, but they're not saying how, in what way. So we don't consider this a proper explanation. And we have been doing exactly what Telesur English has been doing since it started in 2014, which is reporting from a Global South perspective, from a Latin American perspective. We are trying to give a voice for those who don't have a voice in mainstream media. And certainly this brings an alarm, but we don't want to speculate yet. We don't want to say it's censorship, yes. We just are alert and concerned.
The United Nations is mediating new talks between Honduras's government and the opposition in an attempt to overcome the political crisis that the country has faced since November's general election. The opposition has accused President Juan Orlando Hernandez of electoral fraud.
If an international mediator comes here and tells us that Juan Orlando is the president, we are going to accept it. But if they tell us that he's not and that it should be Salvador Nasralla, then we need to hand the presidency to Salvador Nasralla.
In the face of the serious crisis that Honduras is going through, it is necessary to force the dictator who usurps the functions of president to resign immediately and call for free and transparent elections to rebuild the rule of law.
Public debates have started this Monday in Cuba in regard to the planned reform of the country's constitution. Our correspondent in Havana, Laura Prada, has more.
Starting in August and until November, scenes like this will be part of Cubans' everyday lives. This is the time frame when public debates for the new constitutional project will take place.
God created men and women so they could reproduce. I believe it will be a huge mistake to legalize same-sex marriage. It will be a decision we could not change later.
The Constitution should take into account what every citizen thinks, and it should defend human rights. So it needs to give this special opportunity to everyone.
One of the most controversial points for the new constitution is the modification of an article which will now define marriage as the union between two people.
This is about social justice. This is about having the same rights as my siblings. They fell in love and got married. After 35 years, I should get the same opportunity to marry my partner of 35 years. We need the same rights as straight couples.
For new generations of Cubans, the process of public debate is a necessary step for the society that has been built over the years in the island.
We want a country where every citizen will have the opportunity to share their opinions and their beliefs. We have a country that supports its people. That's what the Cuban Revolution is, Cubans supporting each other. We need to support every citizen's rights and principles above all else.
This will be a more revolutionary, more inclusive and more modern constitution that will keep Cuba moving forward. Laura Prada, Telesur Havana.
Former President of Uruguay, José Pepe Mujica, announced his resignation as senator due to his advanced age and exhaustion. Mujica also said he will not be running for another presidential term. Our correspondent in Montevideo has more.
Former President José Mujica has resigned as senator. He sent a statement to the Vice President and current President of the lower house, Lucía Topolansky. On the statement, he said that he's exhausted and he doesn't have the strength to work for the Senate anymore. He also said he will work in the next years along his political party and social movements to fight for social justice and also support his party in the upcoming presidential elections.
The Chilean government has asked the Vatican to hand over documents related to accusations of sex abuse committed by clergy against minors as local prosecutors stepped up raids of Catholic Church offices in Santiago. Police also searched Chile's Episcopal Conference, the offices of the church leadership, an effort prosecutors say was intended to look for evidence of accusations made against members of the Marist Brothers religious community.
Judicial authorization was required for the discovery of the facts that we spoke about, and that was made possible without prejudice of any facility to enter into this residence, so as to obtain evidence in an informative manner as part of the discovery process.
And still in Chile, where the death of 10 women in a fire at a nursing home has shocked the country. According to authorities, the deadly fire broke out at dawn and quickly swept through the Santa Marta rest home. President Sebastián Piñera visited the site and promised a new program of social security. The tragedy has revived the debate over the uncertain situation faced by the elderly, who have seen their quality of life eroded by increased living costs and low pensions. The government in Costa Rica has launched a new program to prevent gender violence. This comes as a response to women's mobilization in recent months, protesting against 14 femicides that have occurred this year. President Carlos Alvarado and the Minister for the Status of Women, Patricia Mora, signed a decree to focus on preventing violence against women as a national priority. Nearly 55,000 people have been affected by heavy rains in Colombia. President Iván Duque visited the flooded city of Puerto Carreño. He said 20 municipalities are facing a, quote, critical situation, with more than 12,800 affected families and a total of 54,700 victims. The president announced his plans on health, housing and infrastructure to help in the aftermath of the crisis. But victims are complaining about the lack of help 2 months since the floods started. Heavy rains have also affected 8 Venezuelan states. A red alert has been declared in Apure, Bolivar Delta, Amacuro, Guarico, Monagas, and Táchira. Some 5,500 people remain in shelters. As the Orinoco River continues to grow, the Venezuelan government has already delivered aid to the 38 most affected municipalities, but a shortage of medicine is being reported. Ecuador has recorded several traffic accidents in the last few days. On Tuesday, at least 24 people were killed and another 19 injured when a bus crashed into another vehicle on the Pifo-Pallacata highway, which is en route to the Ecuadorian Amazon.
The Integrated Security Service has confirmed 2 accidents that took place on the Pifo-Papayacta highway in Ecuador. The bus was traveling to Quito when it crashed into a smaller vehicle, causing accidents which led to the deaths of several people and the injuries of several others.
22 injured and 24 people killed are reported. Additionally, it has been reported that this accident did not affect the people living in the houses where the bus crashed.
The authorities said they are waiting for the official report to reveal what caused the accident. The Ecuadorian authorities also said that they are coordinating with the embassies of Colombia and Venezuela to help identify those who were killed.
Regarding the national citizenship of the 22 injured, 6 are Ecuadorians, 13 Colombians, and 3 are from Venezuela. It is a total of 13 women and 9 men. Between the 22 injured, we have 2 minors of 5 and 17 years, both in stable conditions.
Also this week there was another fatal bus accident. 12 people died, most were fans of an Ecuadorian football team. President Lenin Moreno said on Twitter account he will remove the director of traffic police, the director of the Ecuador Transit Authority and others, as he found that proper protocols were not followed, allowing the bus to enter into the country. Denise Herrera, Telesur Quito, Ecuador.
In Buenos Aires, Argentina, the Movement for Peace, Sovereignty and Solidarity Among Peoples presented its world campaign to declare August 9th as the International Day of United States Crimes Against Humanity. More in the next story.
Argentine artists, social leaders, journalists, intellectuals, and activists joined the campaign. They say they want to remind the world about what they describe as crimes against humanity committed by Washington against other countries over the last 73 years. August 9 is also the date of the bombing of Nagasaki, where more than 200,000 people were killed.
We chose this date because it was on a day like this one when the second nuclear bomb was thrown, even after they witnessed the damage caused by the first one. The idea of this campaign is not only to remind the world about this, but also about the current crimes that this empire keeps committing. Crimes against humanity, war crimes, etc. Let's take what happened in Iraq as an example, or what keeps taking place in Guantanamo.
Political scientist Atilio Boron says this initiative is also meant to raise awareness about injustice perpetrated by the U.S. through violence and war.
The U.S. maintains permanent criminal policies not only against developing countries, but also against European ones. Let's remember that during the Balkan War, Kosovo was bombed, a terrible event organized by the U.S. and NATO. Or what happened in Libya, what's taking place in Turkey right now. They're creating a terrible economic crisis which will bring pain and suffering to the Turkish people.
The leaders of the campaign are declaring that sanctions against Cuba, Venezuela and Iraq must be denounced as they threaten world peace.
In Mexico, a plague of seaweed known as sargassum has turned beaches in Cancun and Playa del Carmen into a muddy green. Workers and volunteers are working to bring back the pristine sandy white beaches in the Mexican Riviera. In addition, the government plans to build a barrier in the sea to stop the seaweed. Experts say sargassum is an indicator of increasing pollution, a damage up to 100 times higher than the one caused directly by human activity in the Caribbean coasts. A trapped whale has been rescued in the seas of the Chilean Patagonia region this week thanks to a coordinated effort. The whale was stuck in a fishing net, leading Chile's maritime authorities to call on fishermen to remove the nets after the rescue. A convoy made the 3-plus-hour trip off the coast of Puerto Williams to arrive at the site where the whale was trapped. We'll take another short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Over 300 clergymen belonging to the Roman Catholic Church in Pennsylvania have been named in a report detailing sex abuse over the last 70 years. The Supreme Court published a damning report by the grand jury after an 18-month investigation. It has identified more than 1,000 children who were abused. Officials say the real number of victims may be higher due to the reluctance of the victims to come forward. The report also implicates the church in a cover-up of crimes against minors. At least 37 people have been killed in the collapse of a motorway bridge in the Italian city of Genoa. Authorities have said around 16 people were injured, and it's believed up to a dozen may be missing. The bridge dramatically gave way on Tuesday during stormy weather. Rescuers continued their search well into the night and are determined to find people who may be trapped beneath the rubble. And now it's time to bring you some other stories from around the world.
2 Greek soldiers detained in a Turkish prison on charges of illegal entry and espionage have been released pending trial. The soldiers flew back to Thessaloniki, where they were met by officials and their families. They were arrested in March but have always claimed they crossed the border in error after getting lost in fog. The Palestinian Postal Service is having to sort through around 10 tons of post, which was previously blocked by Israel for the last 8 years. The post, consisting of letters and packages, with goods ranging from medicine to wheelchairs, dates as far back as 2010. Israel prevented post entering the West Bank through Jordan, but in a one-off deal released everything they stored.
The real reason was that Israel wanted the email to come under the name of Israel, to get the final fee, so they could benefit from the distribution fees.
Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa has filed his documents in the highest court to oppose a challenge to his victory from opposition leader Nelson Chamisa. Chamisa, from the MDC alliance, has always claimed that the results were rigged. The court now has 14 days to make a ruling, which could lead to a new election or the inauguration of Mnangagwa. Either way, the decision will be final.
We've come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories, you can of course find them on our website at telesur.net, telesurtv.net/English, and join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for Telesur English. I'm Emiko Omolu. Thank you for watching.
This Sunday,